Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. So, as you've no doubt surmised already, because you are beautiful, wonderful, intelligent people, we are going on with the Bard Guide and we are taking a look at their level 2 spells today. And really, while level 1 still has a lot of great options, from level 2 on, a lot of really interesting things start to open up for the Bard. Really, really unique stuff, too. Now, I am focusing mostly on stuff that's going to be useful in combat, but there's a couple of things on here that are still just too good to not list that you're going to more than likely use either outside of, whether it's prior or after combat, which, it's some people might go, oh, that's not the most mechanically effective thing to do in combat. Well, no, but sometimes a little bit of preparation goes a long way. Although, admittedly, when you're talking about numbers and game mechanics, sometimes it's hard to know what exactly will be useful. Well, haste is always going to be useful as an example. Being able to fly will be useful almost all the time, but sometimes having a nice safe space to recover in after a particularly harsh fight, or if survival mechanics are definitely a concern and you're out in some frozen hellscape wilderness, or if you're actually in a hellscape, some spells will just be incredibly useful towards the character's survival. And so, a few things like that will be listed and crop up in here. But let's go ahead and just roll right on along here, shall we? And also, to get us started with this for level 2 spells, the first one to mention is Path of Glory. This is a touch range spell, but it affects 4 5-foot squares per level, and it lasts 1 round per level. 4 squares will light up, one of which has to be your spot. As a swift action on your next turn, you can affect 4 more adjacent squares. Any allies on those squares will heal for 1 hit point uh, for each round that this is going on. This is great for between fights and the end of day kind of camping and recovery, as I mentioned before. Now, 1 hit point, that doesn't really sound like a lot, but bear in mind by the time you have level 2 spells, that's 1 hit point per round, and you'll be having this for 5 rounds. So that's 5 hit points, okay? What makes that better than, say, Cure Light Wounds? Well, Cure Light Wounds will do 1d8 plus up to a plus 5, and it's based off your caster level. So you'll heal anywhere from 6 to 13 points of damage. And that's even at its bare minimum, that's already healing more. But the thing to keep in mind is it's on one single target. Whereas this, if your entire party's in there, all 4 of you, and if all 4 of you have taken enough damage, well, that's 5 hit points per person. So that's 20 hit points healed right there. And if any of your characters has an animal companion, like say a druid, or if even you just have horses or dogs, because some D&D groups, Pathfinder and all that, they turn into wandering menageries, veritable their own little petting zoos. So, being able to heal all those creatures if they've participated in combat will also happen or be able to happen, making this very, very useful. It also boosts the recovery time because normally healing hit points through rest, even with heal checks on top of things, is still going to be a very long and relatively arduous thing. This speeds that up quite a bit. So, Path of Glory, not one you're using in combat, but definitely one you're going to use after you've made sure all the evil things, or rather all the violent things, are dead and not going to be coming after you, and are going to stay dead, most importantly. So, after that, we have one that is definitely useful in combat, and that's Mirror Image. This is personal range and it's self only, and it lasts 1 minute per level. It creates 1d4 plus 1 images every 3 caster levels. These images flicker to life and they begin moving and sounding as you do. And when you're attacked by any attack that requires a roll against you specifically, you roll to see if you or an image are hit. If the attack misses by 5 or more, an image is destroyed. Now, when I say that these are affected when there's a roll that's required against you, that's ranged attacks, melee attacks, range touch attacks. So a lot of spells and like that require specific attack rolls will be affected by this. A fireball is still going to hit you. It's not going to destroy the images, but, it's not perfect defense, but it's definitely going to take care of a lot of problems that are coming your way. Definitely incredibly useful because every attack wasted is less damage that you specifically have taken, which you absolutely want to keep going as an onwards trend. And also, in the interest of that, we have the spell Allegro. It's an interesting spell. I love it. You target yourself only, and it lasts 1 round per level. So it's not hugely long, not nearly as long as Mirror Image. Mirror Image lasts for frickin' ever as far as buffing spells go. You gain haste while maintaining a bardic performance, which a lot of times you are going to be doing. So having this slap down on top of yourself is going to be very useful. Haste is an incredible spell. Definitely one of the most mechanically useful buffing spells for combat possible, and getting that as a second level spell effect is awesome. Also, you can dismiss Allegro and reroll a failed dex skill or reflex save as an immediate action. Or rather, I should say, it doesn't necessarily have to be failed. If you're pretty sure you failed, you can reroll, but you do have to take the second result even if it's worse. Although, if you failed, you may as well dispel this and try to take the way out, especially if it's going to be particularly perilous or life-threatening to you. Also, this can be used to dispel slow, so this is a nice 3-in-1 package right there. Granted, it only works as long as you're maintaining a bardic performance, but again, you're probably going to be doing that more often than not, and since this will let you get an extra attack out with your arrows, and you can do things like rapid shot and many shot to help keep pumping that up, well, you're going to want to have some kind of a quiver that stores a lot more arrows than what the standard ones will let you do, because you're going to send them all flying out there and pin cushioning your opponents. But moving on from there, probably one of the most useful spells I've seen crop up, well, in any spell list, that's the Anti-Summoning Shield. It's a medium range spell. It covers 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. It affects a 50-foot radius, lasts 1 minute per level for incredible endurance there as far as a debuff goes. Do you want to stop a caster from summoning help? Or an outsider using their summon spell-like abilities, like a devil trying to summon more devils? This spell will add a 5% times your caster level chance of failure that stacks with other sources, such as the aforementioned summon spell-like abilities outsiders have. Each of those has a percentage chance that these summons will just be ignored. So if you're already throwing down a 60% and they have a 20 or 30% chance of failing already, well, you're looking at 80 to 90% failure chance there that they'll be able to summon allies. And while the monsters they summon are typically going to be lower demons, lower devils, lower level stuff, they still tend to have spell-like abilities, or at least resistances, and be fairly capable in direct combat. So getting them out of the way early, preempting that, locking off an opponent's ability, that's huge, massively useful. I should note that this won't stop the summoner class from summoning their Eidolon, but it does prevent them from using any of their summon monster spells. So the Eidolon, they can still summon up, but you'll cut them off from pretty much the bulwark of their offensive abilities. So definitely, if nothing else comes up on your list that you pick up, or out of this list that you pick up Anti-Summoning Shield. It is a lifesaver. Also, this one is something that's great for a little bit of the offense, but you're in this more for the debuff it can provide. And that's Sound Burst. It's another close range spell, so 25 feet plus 5 feet every 2 levels. It's a 10-foot radius instant effect. You deal 1d8 sonic damage and force opponents to make a fortitude save to avoid being stunned, in which case stunned will force the target to drop all held items. They can't take actions. They lose dex to their armor class and take a -2 on top of that. Attackers will get a +4 bonus on attack rolls and combat maneuvers for 1 round. Now, 1 round of stun It would have been nice to have like a 1d4 thrown in there, but you know what? The fact that you can affect multiple opponents with this and potentially have, 2, 3, 4 people that are not going to be taking their actions and drop their equipment, especially if you're hitting a spellcaster with this, because, well, spellcasters tend to not have the best fortitude saves. This will be so useful because you want them to drop that staff, you want them to drop the rod, the wand, whatever item they may have at hand. You want them to not be taking an action casting any spells. Doing that gives you a massive edge and buys the rest of your team more time to get in close and start really dealing damage to the fucker. Pardon me there. Anyways, moving on. The next spell we have is Enthrall. This is a medium range spell, 100 feet plus 10 feet per level, and it affects any number of targets. There's really not a lot of limit to this. I guess the only limit I could think of is how far your voice carries, but if you're in an amphitheater or somewhere designed to allow your voice to carry out an echo, you can potentially affect a lot of people. And it lasts for up to 1 hour. Will saves negate this, spell resistance does apply. You have to speak or sing for 1 round uninterrupted. Creatures or religions traditionally hostile to you get a +4 bonus to their will roll in this case. And this applies for things like, dwarves and orcs tend to have historical hatred to them. They just naturally are opposed to one another just based off of that history. And that applies to a lot of settings. Same for orcs and elves and the like, things like that. Things where they're going to be almost automatically hostile by most of your standard RPG fantasy traditions, which, anyways, they get bonuses against that. After that, when they fail, they become friendly and will ignore their surroundings to watch you and listen as you perform. Creatures with 4 hit dice or more, or 4 class levels, or if they have a wisdom of 16 or better, become indifferent and they'll stay aware of their surroundings. Maybe still watching you, but if they notice something happening out the corner of their eye, they're going to turn and take a look at it. And they will get new saves if they notice something that they oppose. Say you're distracting a bunch of guards, and one of the guards, say the guard captain, is level 5. Well, he's going to just naturally be more alert, be a little bit more standoffish from the rest of the crowd. And if he sees people breaking into the guardhouse, well, he's going to oppose that and get a new save. So, moving on from there, after you end the effect, or if the hour runs out, the crowd will spend 1d3 rounds discussing your performance. Unenthralled hostiles or unfriendly creatures can try to heckle you and end the effect, making opposed charisma checks using the highest score in the group. So if somebody in the group of people heckling you has a score of 16, you use that score, with the others making assistance checks. So if there's a lot of people that you did not get wrapped up in the spell, they can quickly start stacking on a fair bit of bonuses there. But if enrolling the opposed charisma checks, they score higher than you, they will end the effect for the whole crowd, and any hostile actions end the effect. So, I list this one as blue because, one, this can affect any number of targets, and this is more of the distraction spell. This is what you're doing to give the rogue time to do their second story work, to break in, steal the documents, assassinate the target, whatever. This is what you're doing to hold everybody's attention and keep them more focused on you. Now, or, if it's not a break-in, it's setting up the ambush. You're getting everybody to pay attention to you while the rest of the team gets around and gets ready. The wizard gets ready to throw that fireball out in the midst of the crowd or wherever they need it to go, however you need it to set up. This is a great setup spell. It's not something you're using in combat, but as a prelude to combat or outside of combat, this will find a great deal of use for you. And it's appropriate. It's absolutely appropriate for the bard to have something like this. Now, through bardic performance, you get something like this, but this spell works a lot better. Pick this one up, having it last for 1 whole hour for the cost of 1 spell slot. keeps the rest of your bardic performances free for things that are going to give boosts in combat. Allow players to roll new saves against different illusory or enchantment effects and things like that. So, definitely grab Enthrall. And then coming up after that, this is another one that's useful in combat, very, very much so, and that's Glitter Dust. It's a medium range spell, so again, we've got that lovely 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. It's a 10-foot spread affecting creatures and objects, and it will last 1 round per level. Will negate the added blindness effect that this can cause. There's no spell resistance for this, though. That's probably one of the best parts of this. You coat invisible things with sparkling golden dust, forcing a will save to avoid being blind, or ending the blindness effect over the continuing rounds. Coated creatures will take a -40 to their stealth checks if they're trying to get away. But the fact that they're invisible, if you hit them with this, you will be able to just generally see them in combat, because them trying to get away in stealth is going to be fairly implausible, if I'm being honest, especially with that -40 there. And really, if they're blind, well, good luck with them trying to stealth and sneak away properly. I'd say that if they're blind, they're going to be stacking on even more bonus or penalties. So definitely have this one. You still need to know generally the right area to target, because this only is a 10-foot spread, but it's a 10-foot area that you're affecting. So definitely figure out generally where the target's at, because if they're sneak attacking, backstabbing, the wizard, the fighter, whoever, hit the area behind them where the wounds are appearing, bam, they are now revealed, everybody can see them, and you can really start to punish that invisible little jerk for slipping up on you guys like that. Speaking of invisibility, though, that's also a really handy spell for you to pick up. It's in your spell list. It's a personal range or touch for yourself or a creature or an object weighing 100 pounds or less. Lasts for 1 minute per level, so definitely an incredible endurance for this particular buff. You make your target and their gear invisible. They'll get a +20 bonus to their stealth while moving, or a +40 if they are standing still. And if something is carried that's longer than the 10-foot radius that the spell technically affects around them personally, the extra bit that extends out that is exposed and revealed. So no massive long pikes like the Macedonians used during Alexander's campaigns. None of those. That's a bit too much right there. But your standard issue halberd, 8 or 9 feet right there, perfect. Go with that. Go with the two-handed sword or whatever. Or if it's the rogue, let them go to town with their short swords and the like. Hostile combat actions like that will end the effect, but by the time they're ready to start backstabbing things, well, I'm assuming everything's lined up and is perfectly in position. And as Hannibal would say, I love it when a plan comes together. Anyways, enough cheesy old references out of me. I believe that's the end of our spell list here, so we are going to go ahead and call things. If you enjoyed today's video, go on down there, hit the like button. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought, what spells you would add to this list. Or, even though I go on about the combat spells, certainly there's stuff that's useful outside of combat, as I've already listed. And there's some things that are just, in spite of their mechanical ineffectualness, are definitely thematically appropriate for a bard, and with great roleplay added in on top of it, the possibilities are endless. So go on down, discuss down below. And if you didn't, or you disagree, or would rather see something else in these lists, well, still, go down there and let me know. Hit the dislike button. Certainly willing to engage in the discourse and conversation overall. But if you're wanting more content, there's going to be a couple of videos over this way popping up that the algorithm deems you may enjoy as well from this channel. Or if this hasn't been your first stop and you've been enjoying the content overall, then hit the subscribe button. Join us here at the Gamers Den. Certainly, we'd be happy to have you here. But once again, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.